Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Those of you guys sitting over here on these two tables, you guys come up and sit at the front. We have a whole bunch of seats here at the front. You can pitch it up here, it's okay, I don't mind. So, the Sikh Research Institute has for the last 10 years been running a leadership program every summer. It's a 2-week long program. It's a really incredible, immersive program. It's sort of like a retreat but on steroids, but in a good sense. You won't get caught for doping. The joke's okay, thank you. It's from July 28th to August 10th. There's 3 streams, so 3 different classes that you can take part in. There's Sikhi 101, which is a basic course for those who want to learn from the basics of Sikhi. There's Sikhi 201, which is about Panthic issues. It talks about Panthic history, especially from the post-Guru period up into the modern day, and also looks at more philosophical issues. And there's Gurmat 101, which is a very intensive class that I took part in last year. Rubina was also part of it. It was a lot of hard work, but very worthwhile. If you were intrigued and wanted to learn more, like Baji had done his workshop this morning, going over the grammar of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, trying to understand the sort of the structure of Guruji, trying to get a better relationship with Guruji, a more intimate relationship, I would really recommend Gurmukhi 101. So it's a really great opportunity to develop, and besides those classes, there's also a lot of other workshops that happen. It's presented, it's been over a decade, so they've really tailored, or we have, I'm a part of the organization now, we really tailored the courses and the information, and it's something that I would really recommend all of you to try to make the effort if you have not already registered or attended in the past to try to come out. And it's well worth it. Plus San Antonio is really nice that time of year. That's it, very hot. So I think everyone's here now. Should we begin? Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So this is a 1-hour talk that the organizers asked me to give a smaller talk. And because I was lazy, I took an older talk that I had done and I changed it a little bit. But I think it's appropriate for our theme this weekend, which is our theme is on Qurbani. And my talk tomorrow, Baji this morning spoke more from the Gurmat perspective, and tomorrow I'll be looking at a more historical perspective, and I thought that this would link in with that nicely. And so today we're going to be looking at the warrior tradition, is that better? The warrior tradition in Sikhi, and we're going to be starting from Guru Nanak Sahib Ji working forward. So we only have an hour. We're not going to rush through, but we might not have a lot of time for discussion, but hopefully we'll have some time at the end or throughout. If anybody has questions or comments, just feel free to raise your hand. Before we begin, because we're going over Guru Ityas or history of the Gurus, there's a lot of images of the Gurus that I use here. We should always keep in mind when we see pages of the Gurus that these are artistic representations of the Gurus, that this is not what the Gurus look like. Bhai Das Ji tells us that Guru Murat Guru Shabad Hai, that if you really want to see what the Guru looks like, then you should read Bani, right? So the images of the Guru can be troubling because they can be historically inaccurate, they can be off, they can have the biases of the artist. But for purposes of our presentation, they can be useful as well. So we're going to be beginning with looking at the roots of the warrior tradition in Sikhi. Can you guys over here see the screen? Can everyone see? Okay. And especially if you are studying Sikhi from a Western perspective, if you take a class at a university, for example, or if you read a book about Sikhi, a lot of times people who study Sikhi from an outside perspective really break up Sikh history into different sections. And they look at Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji as somebody very different from Guru Nanak, for example. And they say that Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji is the first Sikh warrior, or the first militant Guru, or the first warrior Guru. And they try to kind of create a dividing line between Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji and the earlier Guru Sahibs. And what we're going to be doing today is questioning, is that true? Is that a valid assumption? Is the warrior tradition something that started with Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, or does it start earlier? And I want us to think about what a warrior means for Sikhs. What does it mean to be a warrior? So I mean, in one sense, a warrior is someone who wages war, who fights. That's the most basic definition. But from a Sikh perspective, what type of war are you waging? What are you fighting for? What are the ideals that you're holding? Those are the key principles we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to give away the answer to the question is that Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji is not the beginning of the warrior tradition. When we look at any tradition in Sikhi, be it political thought, be it any philosophical idea, be it social activism, be it religious, be it from an artistic point of view in terms of kirtan or rag, be it in terms of maryada, everything in Sikhi begins with Guru Nanak Sahib Ji. So the root of Sikhi, and Satan Babad Ji in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Nakali Kivad tell us this, that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji built a foundation upon which the other Gurus built Sikhi. And so even the warrior tradition does not begin later. We're going to be looking here at the beginning to see how the warrior tradition actually began with Guru Nanak Sahib Ji. And I just want to read the Shabad quickly for us to go over it. And this Shabad is a Shabad of Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's. And the Shabad is, I'll read this one later on, we'll pick people. Raje sihi mukaddam kutte, jai jagaine bethe sutte, chakar neda paine kao, rat pit kuttaho jat jao, jithe jiya hosi saad, nakki vadi lai tabad. So if you guys look at the meaning down here, and I hope you can see it, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji does not pull any punches. He is talking about government officials, kings, bureaucrats, people who run a state, and he is calling them dogs. He doesn't just call them dogs, he says that they attack innocent people and they lick up their blood like dogs lick up waste on the street. That they're licking up the blood of the innocent people. So these are the types of statements that today, in a lot of countries in the world, can get you arrested. These are the types of statements that can get you thrown in jail. You know, just recently we saw the example of Sardar Haq, that movie got banned in Punjab. So we do not live in a world that's free. Now imagine the world of 500 years ago. It was not a free state. There was no freedom of speech. There was no guaranteed rights. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is speaking very forcefully. He's revealing Bani from a Galpur that is very forceful, very political, very strong, and he's criticizing people in a way that is very dangerous. And he's doing it in a fearless manner. And this sort of tradition begins with Guru Nanak Sahib Ji right from his beginning. And we see in Guruji that he disrupts social conventions at every turn. He doesn't care about how society is normally run. His father tries to send him to school, what does he do? He teaches a teacher the alphabet, right? His father tries to make him a farmer, he doesn't do that. His father tries to get him to be a businessman, he gives all his money away and makes langar, right? So Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is always turning social convention on his head. He's a rebel in every sense of the word, right? And if we look at this Shabad is related to Janot. And so Janot, for those of you who don't know the Sakhi, when you're 9 years old, in the caste that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was born in, they do a big ceremony, and it's like a coming of age ceremony, like a bar mitzvah for Jewish people. And the Janot is put on to the boy, and he's declared to be a man. And I want us to imagine how much pressure, those of us who have been married know about the type of pressure you have from family to like do different ceremonies or do different rituals. Now Guru Nanak is a 9-year-old child, the whole village is invited, their father has like invited all his, Mehta Khaldu has invited all their relatives, all his people have come, and they're doing this big ceremony, everyone's really proud, and in the middle of this scene, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, as the Pandit's about to put the Janot on him, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji says no. He refuses it. So to have that courage, that conviction, at that young of an age, that's the heart of a warrior. That's what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji has. And then not only does Guru Nanak Sahib Ji do, look at the Shabad that he reveals in that instant, which is recorded in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Sikha kana churaya, Guru Brahman theya, oho moa, ho chanvya, vetagga gaya. So he's saying the Brahmin, when you go to a Brahmin, he whispers words into your ears. He gives you little lessons. And Guru Nanak Sahib Ji says, what's the point of these lessons? Oh, whoops. He's just going to die in the end. His body's going to float away. He's not going to get any salvation. He can't save himself. How is he going to save you? Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is saying this, and here, again, remember these are paintings, it's not a direct representation, but here we have a painting from Babatal Gurdwara, which has now been destroyed by the SGPC, but anyways, Here's Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, and here's Pandit Hardayal, and Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is telling Pandit Hardayal, no, I'm not going to put on the Janeu, and then he reveals his body. So to the Brahmin's face, he reveals his Shabad. That's the conviction, speaking truth to power. That's the principle that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji has. And really, one of the most dramatic instances of this is when Guru Nanak Sahib Ji confronted the Mughal Emperor Babur. So Babur invaded from Turkmenistan. He was a Turkmen, and he invaded India in about the middle period of Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's Guru Gaddi. And he took over from the earlier dynasty that was there, which was the Lodi dynasty, and he started the Mughal dynasty. And when Babur invaded, he committed massive human rights abuses. He destroyed cities, he killed people, he destroyed religious centers, he raped women, he killed innocent people. He just caused massive destruction when he came in, and Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was a direct witness to this. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was in Ahmedabad with his beloved Sikh Bhai Lallo, and he was witness to what Babur did. And Guru Nanak Sahib Ji bore witness to this, and we have to ask ourselves, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji had no army with him, he had no Khalsa Panth with him. He had Bhai Mardana and Bhai Lallo, and that's it. But even in that situation, he refused to back down. He confronted Babur to his face. And what's very interesting is that Guru Granth Sahib Ji has very few shabads that have a historical context, very few. Because Bani is meant to be, of course, something that is timeless. But we have 4 shabads which we call Babur Bani, or relating to Babur. And those 4 shabads, well, means you gotta wake up. Also, you're gonna break my heart. I see your eyes. You know, everyone else is going to be too embarrassed to fall asleep. So, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji revealed 4 shabads in Guru Granth Sahib Ji that speak directly to Babur's invasion. And I want us to look at the type of language that Guruji uses about Babur. He says, Paap ki janjale kadlo taya jodi mange daan mein lallo sara mattar mein doy chup khloye ud phire par daan mein lallo. So evil for Sikhs is not some outside force. We have no devil. Evil is people. When evil is talked about in Bani, evil is people who have disconnected themselves from Akal Purkh Vaheguru, who have lost that interconnection and are under the control of their mind, manmukh, right? And they have become entranced by Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, and God. That's what evil is. And evil is not an unsolvable condition. It can be fixed by coming to the Guru, right? By having Guruji's Gurmat blessing. Guruji says, what's really evil? Evil here is that Saramtan, that the people who are good and decent, they're hiding. Chup Kaloy. And then the evil, Ur Pere Pradhan Vela, real Pradhan means, right? It means like a president of a Gurdwara, Pradhan, like a leader. Guruji is saying the evil is, the bad people are strutting around like they're leaders, and the good people are hiding. So people need to take action. They need to take a stand. That's what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is doing here. He's calling us to take a stand. Now the Bani is also about a bigger picture about the accepting hukam, about how to deal with tragedy and all sorts of other issues. But we're going to focus on this aspect of these shabads right now. Now for saying and revealing these shabads, does anybody know what happened to Guru Nanak Sahib Ji? Because he confronted Babur to his face with this. Does anybody know? He was arrested. So I thought this was really interesting. Baji had asked me to talk about sort of things that were happening today, and maybe we can have discussion some other time about sort of the events in Punjab that are happening right now. But a lot of the events in Punjab right now are related to people being in jail. People like Darvaysh and Jagtar Singh Kawala and Balapin and Bhai Bhavan Singh Adwana, the people who are in jail right now. And I was thinking about it on my drive here, that we have in our tradition 4 gurus that were political prisoners. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, Guru Arjan Sahib Ji, Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, and Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji were all jailed. So we have a strong tradition of political protest and being political prisoners. This is something that is part of the Sikhi psyche in a sense. Standing up and being punched for it and not caring about that. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was sentenced to hard labor. So Guru Nanak Sahib Ji had the courage to stand up to an emperor to his face without any resources. He was thrown in jail for it. And he never backed down from the truth. He didn't apologize. He didn't mince words. He called him a devil to his face. He calls him Shaitan, which means Satan, right? That's what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji calls Babur in these shabads. So Sikhi, as we all know, is not a solitary path, which is why we're all here and not off in a monastery, right? And here we can see when Guru Nanak Sahib Ji went to the Siddhs, and Siddhs are yogis who have reached a high position. That's what a Siddh is. It's just a type of a yogi. When Guru Nanak Sahib Ji went to the Siddhs, he had a discussion with them. And here's a shabad where Guruji is talking to the Siddhs. This is from Siddh Ghosh, which is a discussion with the Siddhs. Manpak pulle jamki kaan, parkar johe hane han, manpak param pave beban, ve mare muse mantar masan, sabad na jinne lave kuban, nanak saat rate sukh jaan. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji said that those people who are in the pull of death, who are afraid of death, they are the ones who go off, lose everything, wander around in jungles, walk around, chanting incantations, living in cremation grounds. These are the people that are kind of being religious. People who are look religious or are off doing religious things, they're lost. They're actually afraid of death. It's those who confront death, who have a heart and a mentality of a warrior, they're the ones who have the courage to live life, to take part in the world, to get involved in the messiness of the world and try to make a difference in it. It's the cowards who leave the world and take the easy path. That's what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's mentality is. So getting married, having a family, this isn't the easy way out. This is hard, and it is hard. It's hard to have responsibilities. It's hard to deal with things. It's hard to deal with compromises when you're doing business, when you're in a job, when you're faced with moral issues. That's where you need to have the courage and the conviction of sticking to your principles. That's what Guru Nanak Sahib is calling us to. So a true warrior is somebody who is fully engaged in society. And here I've used a modern day painting of Mata Kivi. Does anybody know who Mata Kivi was? Please? She is one of only 3 Sikhs whose names is mentioned in Guru Granth Sahib Ji.
She was Guru Angad Dev Ji's wife.
Yes, she was Guru Angad Dev Ji's wife.
She was in Guru Granth Sahib.
Yes.
Was critical in the longer process.
Yes. Yeah. She was in charge of Guru Angad Sahib Ji's Langar, which really was a formalization period of the Langar institution as we know it today. Mata Kivi is a very important figure in Sikhi. There's a really beautiful line in Sata Balwazwar, it escapes me now, but Bhai Balwant Ji talks about Guru Angad Sahib Ji as the husband of Mata Kivi. So usually in our culture, the woman is known as the wife of the person, but Bhai Balwant says, the husband of Mata Kivi is blessed. So it's, turning it on its head. Anyways, Mata Kivi Ji really symbolizes this aspect of what we're looking for in a warrior, which is someone who cares for the needy, provides for the poor, and stands up for the rights of others. And that's where our warrior tradition comes from. It doesn't come from wanting wealth. It doesn't come from wanting land. It doesn't come from wanting to take over other people. It doesn't come from wanting to spread our faith in a violent manner. It comes from seeing people's rights being taken away and loving them so fully that we are willing to put everything on the line for them. That's where our warrior tradition comes from. So our warrior tradition isn't separate from Langar. Our warrior tradition is essentially comes out of the Langar tradition. It's part of the same idea. And that's why we say Dek Dek Fatik, right? It's a linked idea. So when we talk about seva is providing for people. Now, if your rights are getting taken away, let's say it's Nazi Germany, just to use an extreme example, and you're Jewish, and they're coming to take you away to a concentration camp, is going to your house and giving you langar going to be much use? So that's the question we need to ask, right? People need to have their social and political rights, and they need to have their physical needs met. And so a Sikh ideal is to meet both those needs. Is to provide for people's physical needs, clothing, shelter, medicine, food, and provide for their political and social rights. Then a person can be free. Now, one of the beautiful things, and we're going to really talk about this with our Shahidi lecture tomorrow, of course, is the idea in Sikhi that Guru Sahib never told us what to do, ever. The Gurus always showed us what to do. There's a very big difference. So never once did Guru Sahib say, Sikhs, go do this, go do that. Guru Sahib first did it, and based on modeling the Guru's behavior, we try to emulate how the Gurus lived. And this is a really inspiring thing. And I really want us to think about it. You know, again, these paintings, these modern paintings of Guru Nanak Sahib, they're important because they show Guruji engaging in labor. You know, I don't know if he was wearing an orange color birthday while he's doing it, but that's fine. They look all too silky to be farming it. But Guru Nanak Sahib Ji traveled for 30 years. So we can't even conceive of that. He comes back to Kartarpur at the age of 50 years old. 50. We're talking about the 1400s. So in today's numbers, that's like a 70-year-old. Now, when we at Babe come, and this isn't a critique of Babe, but I'm just saying, when we at Babe, how many Babe out there do you know have a job? Does anybody know Baba? One? You know one? Very good. You were falling asleep earlier. That doesn't make up for it. I think this is being recorded too. So Guru Nanak Sahib Ji. Now let's imagine Guru Nanak Sahib Ji creates the town of Kartarpur, the first 600. Now if you're a Sikh of Guru Nanak, and Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is an old man, would you provide for Guruji? Do you think Guruji had to work? There's no need for him to work at all. Yet every day for his whole life until he died at the age of 72, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji went out into his fields and worked. Can you imagine? Surrounded by Sikhs who would do anything for him. And we know they would do anything because what are all the Sakis of Pailena about how he would do anything for his Guru. If Guruji didn't want to work, he didn't have to. But he wanted to demonstrate how a Sikh should live their life. So when people say Guru Nanak Sahib Ji went off, why do we have to be a family life? Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's travels are something unique in Sikh history that need to be understood carefully. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji did live as a family man, as someone who had a family, who had responsibilities, and he really fulfilled them to a degree that most of us wouldn't do today. He never retired, for example, right? He kept working. You know, Guru Arjan Sahib Ji built Amritsar, a beautiful big city, or he developed Amritsar. Does anybody know how Guru Arjan Sahib Ji and Mata Ganga, his wife, would get their food? Does anybody know where they would make money from? So Guruji would eat langar at the langar. Guruji and Mata Ganga Ji used to weave baskets and sell baskets, and they would make money from the selling of baskets. So our Gurus lived how to be. They had huge resources, but they never used it for themselves, which is also something we need to think about in terms of how our community spends our resources today and what we're, if we're letting people just get a free ride, right? Anyways, if we look at these two principles out of the three main principles of Sikhi, Naam Japna Kirtan Avan Ke Shakna, two of them are to do with social interaction, which is interesting. Only one of them we can call dharmic if we're dividing things, but in Sikhi, of course, we don't divide things like that. But if we look, these two have to do with how you treat other people. When you're working honestly, that means you're not abusing someone else. That means you're paying them fairly. That means you're treating your workers kindly, all those ideas, right? That means you're not cheating on your taxes. How many Sikhs pay their taxes fully? So, secondly, sharing what you earn. It's the same thing. It's about taking care of the people around us, right? So these are two principles of Sikhi that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji lived and demonstrated. But just because he was a moral warrior or had the spirit of a warrior, was he a physical warrior? Well, let's take a look at this example. There's a small Gurdwara in Assam, and you can still go visit it today. Unfortunately, there's no images of it I can find online. So one of you guys to go take a trip out there and take pictures and then send them to me for future presentation. In the area, there was a woman. That's why I need notes. I forgot her name. She was a queen of the area. It's actually a society that had female leaders, and her tribe converted to Sikhi under Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's inspiration. And when Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was leaving that area, She asked, Rani asked Guruji for a gift, and Guruji left his Baadshaah that he was carrying with him. And there's a Gurdwara there called Baadshaah Sahib. Baadshaah is the spear, right? Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was carrying a spear on his travels, as the story teaches us. Now, anybody here know martial arts or basic things about fighting? Anybody? Usually there's somebody. So one of the key principles of martial arts is you don't carry a weapon if you don't know how to use it, right? Because what would happen? You can hurt yourself and someone else can use it against you. So if Guru Nanak Sahib is carrying a spear, what do you guys think, right? So Guru Nanak Sahib and Bhai Pradhan aren't just walking around the world without protection. It's something to think about. One of the highest lakes in the world is called Guru Dagmar. It is in the Bhutan border of India and southern Sikkim, which is a state in northeastern India. It's above the tree line. It's really, really, really high elevation. And here's a Gurdwara there. And the Gurdwara is from when Guru Nanak Sahib came here. And you know how these stories go. And we don't need to go into whether the story is true or not, but I'll just tell you what the Sakya is. You can make up your own mind. The people there didn't have access to fresh water in the winter. So Guru Nanak Sahib said, took his Baadshaah and hid it into the side of the lake. And the side of the lake, that part of it doesn't freeze to this day. And the name of the lake comes from Guru Ne Daan Mari. The Guruji hid a stick into the lake. So we see from these examples that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji carried a weapon with him. And apparently he could break ice with it too. Sorry. Anyways. We're going to go on from Guru Nanak Sahib Ji. We're going to look at other videos. You guys are like a quiet bunch. I don't know. You're supposed to nap during the off period. What's the time?
35.
We already have half an hour.
3:37.
Okay, I gotta be faster. Okay. So Guru Angad Sahib Ji started, when we talk about getting freedom, when we talk about being able to be free, one of the first things we need to do to be, who here has read 1984, that book, 1984? So one of the key ideas in that book, 1984, it's got nothing to do with Operation Blue Star. One of the key ideas is by George Orwell, is written in 1948, which is why he called it 1984, anyway, is that when you take away people's ideas or ability to think, then they can't even formulate concepts anymore. And so Guru Angad Sahib Ji understood this, that if you want people to understand their situation, if you want them to understand what their place is in the world, they need to be educated, which is why literacy was so important for the Gurus. And so Guru Angad Sahib Ji created Gurmat script, which is an amazing invention, and we don't have time to talk about it right now. But he also knew that freeing the mind, you also need to train the body. You also need to free yourself physically. And so in India at the time, martial arts was something that only one caste could do. And so Guru Angad Sahib Ji, in a very revolutionary way, gave that right to all Sikhs. He gave them all that training. So again, when we talk about warrior tradition, when we talk about being a warrior, these are things that are deep-seated in Sikhi. When we think of Guru Angad Sahib Ji, a lot of us don't think of wrestling. But Guru Angad Sahib Ji started wrestling Akhada at Kadur Sahib. So we need to start rethinking our Gurus and reimagining them and not using other people's opinions of our Gurus. Now Guru Amar Das Ji really made a big step forward in Sikhi in terms of central organization. Because we are a nation, we are a people, we're free. And Guru Amar Das Ji, here's a sort of idealized painting of Guru Amar Das Ji and the 22 Manjidars. And Guru Amar Das Ji sent Sikhs to every state of the Mughal Empire to show that Sikhs didn't need to respect or have any loyalty to the Mughal state, that we had our own separate institution. And these Manjidars had full power. They could make new Sikhs, they collected revenues, they were in charge of the Sangat, they did Katha, they were the interaction between the Guru and the Sangat. It was a really organized system that Guru Amar Das Ji came up with. But even cooler, in my opinion, was when Akbar, who was the Emperor of India. Now I want you to imagine, this is one of the biggest empires in the world at the time. And this emperor comes to Goindwal Sahib. And what does Guru Amar Das Ji do? Does anybody know? He tells him to go on langar first before he comes into the Divan. Okay? Now what do? Forget the Prime Minister or the President. Like when like a mayoral candidate or like an MP or some congressman comes to a Gurdwara, what do? We just go nuts, right? We stick them up on stage, we listen to their speeches for 2 hours, right? And we let them essentially use our space to advertise to us for their votes. I'm not saying we shouldn't be welcoming, opening, and build bridges, but are we interacting with other people from a sovereign place? Are we thinking of ourselves as a sovereign people, as an independent people? Do we have the spirit of independence? Or are we little beggars begging for attention from people we think have power, right? It's our mentality. Sikhi was tiny in Guru Amar Dasji's time. If Akbar wanted, he had armies that were bigger than the entire Sikh nation. He could have wiped us out in a minute. But Guru Amar Das Ji didn't care about numerical strength or anything like that. He knew that his sovereignty came from where? Where does the Guru's sovereignty come from? Who's stuck at this at Amritsar? It's a Khalsa, right? So if your sovereignty comes from Vaheguru, if your Vaheguru is all powerful, then you have nothing to be afraid of. That's what Bani tells us, right? Jiska sahib dada hoye, usnu marna sakeko, right? So Guruji knows, I am sovereign, I am free, I don't care about Akbar. If Akbar wants to come here, he can come here like any other Sikh. Like anybody else come to this Divan, not as a king that I have to like roll out the red carpet for. So this is really, again, speaking to our idea of a warrior tradition. Guru Ram Das Sahib Ji starts Amritsar, and has anybody heard of microloans? Muhammad Yunus, he won the Nobel Peace Prize a few years ago from Bangladesh. He came up with the idea of giving people microloans, which is very small scale loans to poor people so they could make a living for themselves. Well, Guru Ram Das Ji was doing that in Amritsar 400 years ago. Guru Ram Das Ji gave people an opportunity to come to Amritsar, leave their old caste distinctions behind, and create a new life for themselves. And creating a free city. And that's why Amritsar grew in popularity so quickly. It went from being literally nothing to being a huge city. By the time the British came, it was the largest industrial center in northern India. It really got damaged after independence, so-called independence, because it was on the border with Pakistan and because of Indian government industrial policies and so forth. But it was a real economic powerhouse for a number of years. And that really starts with Guru Ram Das Ji. This idea of giving people. So we don't believe in handouts either. If people aren't able to work for themselves, then we will provide for them. But we also want people the ability to take their own destiny, to feel a sense of ownership, to be productive. And I don't want to talk about this too much because really our talk tomorrow is going to be all about this. But when we think about Guru Arjan Sahib Ji, what could be a more fearless, a more warrior-like death than Guru Arjan Sahib Ji's death? We'll talk about that tomorrow, so we're just going to skip over that today. But again, going to hidden, or our ideas of the Guru being very different than they are. Guru Arjan Sahib Ji, when he went to go get married to Mata Ganga in the village of Mao, and this is the Gurdwara where Guruji was married, the Gurdwara commemorating the place where Guruji was married. When he went there, the people of the village didn't like the idea and thought that the Sikhs were a little uppity and why are they coming to our village and who does this guy think he is? They were jealous of Guru Ram Das Ji and of Amritsar, and so they wanted to challenge Guru Arjan Sahib Ji. And so they challenged him to pull a peg out of the ground while riding on a horse, full speed, carrying a spear in your hand. So for those of you who have ever ridden on a horse or used a spear, that's a very difficult thing to do, to pull a peg out of the ground. I can't ride a horse, so I can only imagine how hard that is. But not only is it really difficult, because if you overshoot it, then you're going to fall off your horse, right? And if you put your thing in too quickly, you're going to break your arm. Right? You got to be just right. Now the Sakhi goes in again. I just give these Sakhis if you want to believe them or not. We're not going to get into miracles and those things. The Sakhi is that the people of the village actually took a tree stump, a tree root, and shaved it down to look like a peg. And Guruji uprooted the whole tree, which is a pretty awesome story, even if you believe it or not. But besides that, the point being that Guruji knew how to ride a horse, that Guruji knew how to use a spear. So these lessons, these teachings were there. And we all know, or a lot of us know, that Baba Burdaji was the one who trained Guru Har Gobind Ji how to fight. We've heard this before. Has everyone heard this before? But we have to ask ourselves, who taught Baba Burdaji? How old was Baba Burdaji when he became a Sikh? The answer's right there. He was 6 years old. And he lived his whole life with the Gurus. He lived with Guru Nanak, Guru Angad, Guru Ramdas, Guru Ramdas, Guru Arjan, right? So if someone living their whole life with the Gurus is asked to train Guru Har Gobind Ji as a warrior, what is happening in the early Sikh Guruship period? Is our idea of what the Gurus are like is very skewed. And a part of that is really how we try to depoliticize the Gurus over the last 100 years. You know, when we think of the Gurus, we think of these sort of guys sitting there with their hands up, eyes closed, just meditating. We're not thinking about people who are actively going and changing society, who are making a difference in people's lives. And those are the types of Gurus that we have. Now, this isn't to take away from Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. And there's three things that I want to talk about that Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji gave us as a gift in terms of the warrior tradition. The first is that Guruji asserted sovereignty fully for the first time. So if we ever get our own independent country one day, I think our Independence Day should be Miri Miri Divas. That's my own opinion. That's the day that Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji got up on Akal Takht and said, we are totally free. We're not just free here. We're not just free in the spirit world. We're free in every possible situation. In every situation, we are sovereign. That the Sikh Panth is sovereign in every aspect. Miri Miri Divas. Secondly, Guruji built the Akal Takht, which really became the center of the Khalsa, the Sikh state. And again, what we touched on earlier, he didn't call it his Takht. And this is very important because our warrior tradition, our political tradition, does not come from a human being. And we need to be very careful about that. Just as our body does not come from a human being. Our body comes from Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Our traditions come from Akal Purkh Vaheguru. So this gives us a strength, a grace, a nobility that we're going to really explore tomorrow in more detail when we talk about Shahidi. What gives Sikh women and men the ability to undergo so much hardship? It's because they know that their connection is with Akal Purkh. That's what they not only know, their connection is with Akal Purkh. That's what gives them that strength. And so our Takht is a Takht of Akal. And Akal Takht, it's very interesting, is that there's an Akal Takht also at Kirtpur Sahib, and another Akal Takht at Anandpur Sahib. So wherever Guruji went, they built a new Akal Takht. The idea wasn't that the Akal Takht, I mean that one is important in the sense that Amritsar was like our capital. But when Guru Har Gobind went to Kirtpur and Guru Haraj and Guru Har Krishan Ji were there, when Guru Tegh Bahadur and Guru Gobind Singh Ji were at Anandpur Sahib, they made new Akal Takht sites. And the point being that where the Guru is, that is the Takht. That's where the sovereignty resides. So if we are all the Khalsa Panth today, in a sense, the Akal Takht resides in all of us, a piece of it. As a nation, we have that within us. And of course, one of the greatest gifts we were given by Guruji is we were given the gift of our Siddhi Sahib, of our Kirpan. And so, this is we could do a whole talk on what does a sword represent. I would recommend reading Kabur Singh's essay on our book, The Sakya of Guru Gobind Singh, or reading Professor Tarlochhan Singh's books, Turban and Sword of the Sikhs. Those are two good resources. There's a lot of other books of Professor Pooran Singh. We've just been reading his book in our book club in Toronto. He had a very good chapter called The Sword of Guru Gobind Singh. All these books where we talk about the idea of what a sword represents. But I just want to briefly talk about it, that for us, the sword is a symbol of sovereignty. And it's a symbol of Gyan, and it is a symbol, I'm not using symbol in the sense that we talk about, like it's a real weapon, but it has other meanings wrapped in it. It is a sign of Guruship as well. That's very important. And where does it come as a sign of Guruship? In Bani. In Sata Bhagavan's Vad, Bible once says that Guru Nanak gave Guru Pailena a Gyan Khadak, a sword of knowledge, of wisdom. And so the idea of the Guru giving a sword to the next Guru starts from Guru Nanak what Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji did was that he took that metaphorical sword and made it real, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji gave it to the Khalsa Panth. So these are the gifts that we have been given by Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. And when we look at a Akal Takht Sahib, when you go into a Akal Takht, who here has been to a Akal Takht? Most of you. So when you go in, what's in front of the Akal Takht? Is Guru Granth Sahib Ji in front? What's in front? Guru Granth Sahib Ji is off to the side. And actually Guru Granth Sahib Ji was not installed in Akal Takht Sahib until the 1930s. So Akal Takht used to only have shastras, and these are the weapons of Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, Jassa Singh Ramgariya, the Shorte Sajjade, Baba Deep Singh. These are the weapons of famous Sikhs, Shaheeds and Gurus are kept at Akal Takht to this day. And these are what we get, these are representative of our power. So who here is from Canada? So who's our head of state officially? The Queen. So every year in Canada, the government has a speech. It's kind of like your guys' State of the Union in America. And in Canada, we have a representative of the Queen called the Governor General who gives a speech. In England, in Great Britain, they don't have a representative because she's there. And the Queen comes and gives a speech from the throne every year. And guess what she wears when she comes in to give the speech from the throne? She wears a sword. So whenever the Queen does an important ceremonial job as a Queen, what does she wear? A sword. Every time we have Guru Granth Sahib Ji, what do we have in front of Guru Granth Sahib Ji? A talwar, right? Even in the Baadshaah, right? There's one kirpan there. So for us, this is a symbol, this is a sign of the kirpan that's in front of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. It's Guruji's kirpan to show that our Guru is protected. We can go in our Guru Sharan and be protected by our Guru. Our Akal Takht is a place of weapons. It is our political, judicial, social, political headquarters. And another really great thing about Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji was that he was a pretty amazing warrior. He fought 5 battles and he won every one of them. And the odds ranged from 10 to 1 to 100 to 1. And in every battle, Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji was victorious. And some of these battles are awesome. If you guys want to read about them, we can do Saki time later. Let's just say that one of the battles ends with Guruji picking up the Mughal general over his head and slamming his head into a rock and the guy's head exploding. Okay? So that's Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji is strong enough, according to Sikh history books, to be able to lift up a guy above his head on a battlefield and smash him into the ground like a pile driver. Okay? So our Guru is immensely powerful, not just in a physical sense, but in every sense. Now here we live in Canada, and it's not that great an example nowadays. You know, a few weeks ago, 5 minutes? US, sorry. I can hope. I meant US, that, you know, just a few weeks ago, that old Bappa was unfortunately beaten to death, beaten in, that's not funny. Beaten in Fremont, Fresno, something with an F. So, and you know, we have the situation with the fight with Veer Singh Sodhi and other incidents that have happened in America over the last 10 years, but usually we can say we're generally safe. Why do we need to wear a kirpan? This is a common, you guys, those of you who do carry a kirpan, who are Shastatari, you're sometimes challenged with this idea. And this challenge isn't new. Bhai Das Ji records in his Vada that the Sikhs asked the Gurus the same question. They asked Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji the same question at Kirtpur Sahib. And Guru Hardas Sahib Ji is a very good example. I really like this painting. It's sort of a modern painting of Guruji with animals. I don't know why there's a zebra there, but we can use our imagination. Okay? I didn't paint it. But he used to have a zoo. Maybe he got it. Yes. I don't know. So Guru Hardas Sahib Ji had a herbal garden that he would grow medicine for, and is considered the best herbal garden in all of South Asia. He also was a veterinarian, and he would find injured animals in the jungle on his walks and bring them back to Kirtpur and nurse them back to health and set them free. So, you know, it's such a touching, beautiful story. The type of stories we need to tell our kids, right? Guru Hardas Sahib Ji always was Shastradhari, always kept weapons on him. even in that act of being a doctor, even in the act of being a veterinarian, even as a healer, those two things are not divided. There's no distinction. You don't be a warrior and you can't be peaceful. That's wrong. We're looking at it from a non-Sikh perspective then. To be peaceful, you need to be a warrior. To be able to have that freedom, and you do.
You also get the standing army.
Yes. Thanks for stealing my next point. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate that. Do you know how big it was? It was like 2,500. So in Gurmat, which is, in those days especially, on the outskirts of central Punjab, very far from Lahore and that area, where there's very little risk of attack, Guruji kept and paid, so these Sikhs had to be paid because they had no other job, they were soldiers, a standing army of 2,500 Sikhs who were full-time soldiers the entire time that he was Guru at Gurmat. This is a really important Sikh tradition, that even in times of peace when there's very little risk of attack, you always have to be ready. You always have to be prepared. That this is not something you take on and off when it suits you. This is a way of life. This is a way of navigating the world. This is a way of interacting with the world. And I just want to quickly, I don't know if we have time, this Shabad of Bhai Gurdas Ji's, and we'll just go over the translation quickly. Bhai Gurdas Ji is talking about what is a true warrior, and I really like this Shabad because he doesn't say a true warrior. You know, we see all these videos of Nahang singing. I'm not going to go on an anti-Nahang thing at all. That's not the point of it. But my thing is that we hear a lot of things today. You got to be always fighting. You know, you see people, they file their teeth down, all sorts of crazy stuff. You have to be cutting off the heads of goats to be a warrior, all this sorts of stuff. What does Bhai Gurdas Ji says makes a real warrior? Is it being the super violent, chismo sort of rah mentality? No. Bhai Gurdas Ji says a real warrior is someone who can be ready to fight at our need, but also is always ready to keep his Amrit Villa or her Amrit Villa. A true warrior is someone who comes to the Sangat and destroys their ego. So it doesn't just go into the battlefield, but comes into the Sangat. A true warrior, the perfect path of a Gurmat is to die in battle with complete control of your senses. So not using bhang or some other drug to help control your senses, but through control, through bani, through connection with the golf court, be in control of your physical body in such a way that you can die in the battlefield. We'll talk about that tomorrow, of course, with the Shaheeds, who have full control of their body. And I really like this last line. Sach Siddhik Sach Veer Pachape, recognize. How do you recognize your true Guru? That person who you think of when you're about to die, that is your true Guru. It's a really nice way of talking about who your Guru is. Bhai Gurdas Ji says, when the warrior is about to die on the battlefield, the person that comes to the warrior's mind, that is their Guru. The person, a true warrior, what will be on their thoughts at the last moment? It will be their Guru. That's how you recognize a true Guru, according to Bhai Gurdas Ji. Guru Harkrishan Sahib Ji, 5 years old when he becomes Guru. It took me a while to find a proper image, but here you go, is an image, an old painting of Guru Harkrishan Ji with a coup de bow and arrow today. So did Guru Harkrishan Ji. So when you're doing it, you know you're part of the tradition going back. And here, Guruji, even as a 5-year-old child, is fully Shastradhari, is a full warrior. So don't think that because he's a child, he's not a full Guru in any sense. He's a full Guru in every complete sense. He's a political sovereign. Even his act of going to Delhi is a very political act. Imagine if let me see, what would be a good example? If George Bush, at the height of the Afghan war, I'm not comparing Guru Harkrishan to George Bush, but at the height of the Afghan war, went into Kabul and stayed in the house of an American, but refused to go refused to go and recognize the Taliban's authority. Let's say not before the war started, while the Taliban controlled it. So Guru Harkrishan, this is a bad metaphor, let's go back. Guru Harkrishan Sahib Ji went to Delhi when Emperor Aurangzeb was in charge of all of India, and he went and stayed at Raja Jai Singh Savendi, and he refused to recognize the authority of the Mughal Empire. So he went into the heart of the Mughal Empire and exerted his sovereignty there, and created his own institution, created his own Sangat there. So he did that as a 7-year-old child. That's why as a Panth we have so much strength. That's why we can do such amazing things, because we are connected to something very powerful. And Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Sahib's act at Delhi of giving his head for the rights of others really speaks to a check and a balance. So in America, you guys love your checks and balances, right? But when it comes to government, that's what you guys learn. We have checks and balances in Sikhi too. Because let me give you an example. Imagine a religion where you have no fear of death, where you are warrior people, and you love your faith. What can happen? What can go wrong? You can go out and start taking over other people. You can start subjugating them, right? And let's take it out of the example. That's what Islamic Christianity did for the last 1,000 years almost, right? They spread their faith by the sword in many instances. Sikhs have never done that. Even under Ajit Singh's Raj, as bad as Ajit Singh was in many ways, Ajit Singh in many ways, very bad as a Sikh. But we can say with such pride that nobody was forced to be converted during his Raj. We had full control over Punjab and we didn't convert anybody. So Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, by standing up for the rights of a people that he fundamentally disagreed with, and read Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's body and read about what he thinks about Hinduism and Brahmanism, not in the sense of the people, but in terms of their rules of caste and religion and ritual. This is a guru who really, Thomas Jefferson, the famous expression, I might not agree with what you believe in, but I'll die for your right to say it, something like that, right? Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib did not just say that, he lived it. He went to Delhi and he demonstrated that I am willing to die for your right to practice your religion. So when we come up with moral issues today, like let's say gay marriage, even as a Panth, if we disagree with it, and I'm not saying we do or not, because we have to come to an opinion, Sikhs have a duty and a responsibility always to stand on the side of those who are marginalized, to stand on the side of those whose rights have been taken away. Be they immigrants, be they illegals, be they refugees, be they women in certain situations, be they people in other countries who are in impoverished conditions. We have a responsibility to stand with the marginalized. That's what Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji has demonstrated. So our warrior tradition has a check on it. We are very powerful. Our gurus were very powerful, but they never abused that power. They did the opposite. They did seva and qurbani for other people with that strength and power. And what's really, do you guys mind if I go about 10 minutes over? Is that okay? No one's going to get up and leave? Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. Did anybody know what Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's name was when he was born?
Yeah.
That's awesome. First guy ever in these talks that's ever gone in, right? Let's give him a stand, a jekara. Let's do a jekara. So who else knew that Guru Tegh Bahadur didn't have the name Tegh Bahadur when he was born? Anybody else? Don't be shy. So Guruji was born with the name Tyagmal. And when did he get his name changed? Do you know? When Guruji was 14 years old, he fought in his father's battle. His father is who? Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. The battle of Kartarpur. And Guru Tegh Bahadur fought with a teka. What's a teka? It's a very big sword. Big talwar. And what did he do with the teka? Sikh tells us he cut arrows in half as they flew through the air. He was so incredible on the battlefield with a sword that after the battle was over, as Guruji went around to the wounded Sikhs and gave them blessings and tended to them and gave them pyar, and he came to Baba Tyagmal, his son, he gave him a big hug and he said, Aj, today you are not Tyagmal, you are my Tegh Bahadur. You are the brave sword. Best name in Sikh history, I think, right? The brave sword. That's Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's name. So our image of Guruji, especially in your Shobha Singh paintings, really skewed vision of Guruji. We have this vision of a guy sitting in a basement doing Naksam all the time, right? But if you even look at older representations of the Gurus, he's always wearing weapons, like all the Gurus were. Not only that, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was perhaps the greatest sword fighter in Sikh history. And yet, being such a great warrior, having a Khalsa army or Sikh army, he went to Delhi and gave his life peacefully. So it's not that he gave his life peacefully because he didn't have a choice. That's the incredible, that's the amazing thing. That's what made Guruji's act so even more so unbelievable is the fact that he did it with all the strength and power he had. He knew that his act of political protest would be more powerful coming from the place that he was. If he just went with no power and he did his protest, it wouldn't have any impact. But having this power and then going and protesting this way was transformative. It woke people up. It shook them. It shook the throne of Delhi. That's what Guru Tegh Bahadur did. You know that idea from Zafarnama that Guru Gobind Singh Ji gives us, this idea that we have to try other means. So as a warrior people, we don't just, and this is something we do too quickly today as a community, when the situation doesn't call for we disagree with somebody, we start beating them up. And we've forgotten the tradition of Guru Amar Das Ji, who lets Datu kick him. Kick him into the bar. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine if someone came and disrespected Guru Granth Sahib Ji in Diwan, how would we react today? Guruji allowed himself to be kicked in the Gurdwara, and what is his response? Who remembers the Sakhi from when they were little?
My bones are hard.
He gets down on his hands and knees and starts massaging Datu's foot. That is Guruji's response to being disrespected. What is our response to being disrespected today? It's like, let's go back and deal with this, right? So, I'm not saying we need to be weak. If it's a matter of life and death, the sick will always respond forcefully. But too often, if we disagree with somebody's book or somebody's point of view, or how dare they say this or that about Dasam, for example, whatever the opinion is, whatever side you're on, we just lose it. We have totally lost the ability to deal with each other with nimrata, from a place of kindness and compassion and love. So Guruji even gives the enemy that compassion and love. Guruji will give the enemy the chance. And when all other means fail, then they will then take up the sword. That's Sikh tradition. So we are powerful warriors, but we don't abuse that power. So when we think about Guru Gobind Singh Ji, we have this weird idea. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, Guru Hargobind and Guru Gobind Singh Ji, they're warrior gurus, everyone else is not. Maybe Guru Hari is kind of, we don't really know. But we've got this weird idea in our head of the gurus. We split them up in our minds. And what we forget is that all the gurus have what? As Bhai Nanda Ji says, Sab eko ek na nahi ped, nahi ped na kachu bhi bekna. There is no distinction between any one of them. They are all, each and one of them, exactly the same. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji, what he's doing is a direct, step-by-step progression of Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's vision and dream. So when Guru Gobind Singh Ji creates the Khalsa, he is simply finalizing something that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji has started. It's not some new crazy idea. It's not some big transformative step. It is simply the final step of a well thought out progression. How long did Jesus preach for? Does anybody know?
Very short, 14 to 17 years.
He came back to Jerusalem when he was 30 and he died when he was 33. He preached for 3 years. Okay? Guru Nanak Sahib Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji is 238 years of well thought out, step-by-step action, laying out a plan for the Khalsa Panth. We have been so blessed. We have a scripture that is fundamentally superior in every sense. It was written in the hand of the prophets, unchangeable and unchanging. We have traditions going back to the Gurus. We have everything organized. We have this amazing gift that the Gurus have given us, that they gave 10 of their lives to set up our Panth in this amazing fashion. So when we compare ourselves to other traditions, to Islam, to Buddhism, to Christianity, I'm not disrespecting the space. I'm saying that we need to understand how blessed we are. They only had one prophet. We've been blessed with 10. So Guruji, they planned this all out step by step. And so the warrior tradition is not something that just sprung out of nowhere because the Mughals were attacking. Don't think that your gurus are like normal human beings. They get impacted. Then one day they go out and there's bad guys out there, so they're like, oh, we guess we should work for bonds. That's what we should do now. There's bad guys around. The gurus are above history. They are outside of that. They are antarjami. They are knowing of every single thing in the world. That's what we believe. That's our faith. And so if the Guru is outside of history, that means that everything the Gurus do is a lesson for us, and everything is planned out step by step. So we need to get out of the thinking of our Gurus as historical actors and understand that our Gurus aren't a part of history, our Gurus make history. We also need to think about this idea as a community. Guru Angad Sahib Ji has a Rasana Kala. Guru Arjan Sahib Ji is trained. He asked Baba Buddha Ji to train Guru Hargobind Ji. Guru Hargobind Ji and Baba Buddha Ji together trained the Sikh army. The Sikhs of Guru Hargobind that were fighting were not different than the Sikhs of Guru Arjan. Guru Ji didn't go out and go find new Sikhs all of a sudden were tough. And does anybody know the Shabad that's very famous? Ik Ardas Pat Kirat Ki Guru Ram Das Rakho Sarnain. Pat Kirat, who's a parts are traveling bards. He was a musician. He was a Sikh of Guru Arjan and Guru Hargobind. He was a Shaheed. Sikh history tells us that he fought in battle under Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, and he fought in battle with his sarangi on his back. So the Sikhs of the earlier groups became the warriors later on. They were trained. What institutions do we have today that are creating a warrior mentality for our children, for ourselves? Are creating a sovereign space? Are developing our minds, our thinking, our bodies in that sense? Are we supporting those organizations? Are we building those organizations? Are we creating spaces for our nation to really exert itself? We are a warrior people. We need to be proud of that. We need to celebrate that. That's what we do in our Das every day. We should not be ashamed of it. I found it very disheartening last year after Oak Creek that I heard a lot of people kind of in this sort of apologetic tone in the States say, we're a peaceful religion, we're a peaceful religion. And I don't disagree that we're not a peaceful religion. We are. But we are also a warrior people, and we need to be proud of that. And we need to change the discourse and say, we are a warrior, and this is what being a warrior means to us. It's not what it means to you. It means standing up for the rights of the marginalized. It means respecting everyone. It means serving people. It means seva, it means langar. It means Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, it means Guru Arjan Sahib Ji. That's what we need to teach. So we cannot be ashamed of our root, of our aspect, of our warrior tradition, because it is something that began with Guru Nanak Sahib Ji. And I want us to think about what a warrior is capable of. A warrior is capable, a Sikh warrior is capable of achieving great things when they are connected to their Guru. They are capable, and I wanted to bring this in because we're coming up to June 84, to the anniversary, is that we need to stop thinking about June 84 just in the terms of a genocide, which it is, and just in the terms of a massacre, which it also is, but we also need to think of it in the terms of a celebration of warriors. Of the fact that 100-odd people can hold off the world's 7th largest army for a week and a half. That's something to be celebrated. That people fighting with World War II era machine guns can hold off anti-aircraft missiles, tanks, helicopters, and highly trained commandos. So that's something to be proud of. So a warrior is capable of great actions, not if they're physically strong. If you listen to Babaji Nelson's speeches, he always goes on about how I'm weak, that he needed glucose injections and all sorts of stuff. He was very physically not very strong. The whole Sakya by Meditasan, this isn't an excuse for us not to exercise. I'm trying myself nowadays. But, by Meditasan, the Sakya is all about the idea that physical strength comes from where? It comes from love of Guru. There are stories from Delhi 84 where Sikhs who had never touched a kirpan before went into their homes, picked up a kirpan, and defended their street, and defended their homes. And it happened. Because we have that inside of us, we have that capability, that connection, we need to find it, develop it, build it. And that's what I meant when words are developed. We're going to end on this slide, is that we have here a picture of the Sahibjada, in Anand Prasad with Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Sahibjada, Baba Ajit Singh, was 13 years old when he first led an army campaign under Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Yeah, not under Guru Gobind Singh, he led it independently. Guru Gobind Singh Ji sent him out in command of a group of 106 to rescue a woman who had been kidnapped by a Mughal governor. And Baba Ajit Singh went out and rescued the woman and brought her back to her family. He did this as a 13-year-old child. He was a general in the Khalsa army. So the Sayajade are a greatest example of warriors in many ways. They were developed by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. They grew up in Anandpur Sahib with all of these resources open to them. We need to develop ourselves as a community as well. So for any and all mistakes I made, especially in dates, in body pronunciation, which I'm terrible at, and in every other way, anything inappropriate I said, and again, this is my own opinion of Sikh history. So if you disagree, or you disagree with my interpretation, that's great. We can have a discussion about it. And that's what Sikhi is about, different points of view. But thank you for listening to me and taking this opportunity. And sorry for going over the time. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki